Welcome to this edition of When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine, a discussion of sustainable living and what that means to you and me. I'm Jay Warmke.
And I'm Annie Warmke.
That you are today on this beautiful day. And today we're going to talk about food foraging, or Yule Gibbons would be proud. So
where do you come up with
I know,
these
Yule
things?
Gibbons.
It's
You remember
scary.
Stalking the Wild Asparagus?
I have
and
that book.
Grape
Yule
Nuts
Gibbons.
and Johnny Carson. We're aging ourselves here. Anyway, we're
No,
joined.
we're not. They had it at the library, but somebody stole it. So I got it for 50 cents at the library
Oh,
sale.
yeah, that's what you're claiming
I
anyway.
didn't steal it. I'm not going to hell over a book.
Okay, so anyway, today we're joined by Laurel Hobden, if she's still here after all of that nonsense. and Laurel is with Laurel's Blends, and she is a forager, artist, lover of plants, all around good person. So welcome.
Laurel's Blends is her business.
Her business, yes.
She's quite good at it too.
Okay, Laurel. All right, Laurel, welcome. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you, Jay.
Okie dokie. Well, I'm going to turn it over to Annie and you primarily. And as I said, I'm just going to throw in some snide comments because I know nothing about plants, nothing about health, nothing about preparing food.
That's close.
I can eat food. That's about it. So take it away. All right.
Everything's a weed to Jay. Mm-hmm. But that's a good thing on this talk. Anyway, so Laurel, I think it'd be great if you told us a little bit about your story and how you decided to create Laurel's Blends.
Sure. When I was in my late 20s, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I went ahead and did the surgery, but I had really strong convictions against chemotherapy. And I had pushed the doctor for the pathologist report, and I only had a 1 in 4 chance of reoccurrence of my cancer. And in talking to the oncologist, if I did chemotherapy, I had a 1 in 5 chance of reoccurrence. So I thought for a 5% differential, I'm not going to put myself through chemotherapy. So I got this book by Santillo Humbart called Natural Healing with Herbs. And I decided to go ahead and do burdock root tincture. So I took burdock root tincture for 3 months daily. And I'm here 30 years later, cancer-free, no reoccurrence. And that got me on the herbal path. And I've been on it ever since. I love plants and I love working with them. And they've got some powerful attributes to share.
What are some of the other things you did? Because this has been a lifelong process of reaching out to have health for yourself, and you've been really healthy, but there are other things that you've done, not just the burdock tincture. What kinds of things do you do as a routine that are beneficial, you feel, to maintaining that health that you have?
Well, first and foremost, I used to, like, when I was a kid, I was the family baker making birthday cakes and all that kind of thing. And then when I became a college student, I became a vegetarian and I started cooking everything from fresh. I'm no longer vegetarian, but I still do cook everything from fresh. And I think that's one reason I have such good health. And also I've been swimming laps for 40 years. So that really helps. Now, also, I have a daughter. She is now an adult and she is autistic. And I have used a variety of essential oils and herbs to help her through her daily life. And that has been helpful to me and to her. And also I've shared various things with friends. I like to make up different formulas for friends in reference to what's going on with them. And also I just love playing with food. I'm just one of those kind of people who loves to be in the kitchen experimenting. And so I have done all sorts of things, in the kitchen, as far as like fermenting and making, kimchi and kvass and a variety of other things. And also, I like to figure out like how many nutrients are in a food, or like this food's good for your liver. Like when I visited China, often when a dish was brought out, they would say, oh, this dish is really good for your yin energy, or this is good for your spleen or your lungs. And I thought, why don't I know those things about my food? now. And I took an herbal class when I was living in the DC area, and she had us working with this book by Paul Pitchford called Healing with Whole Foods. And if you look in that book, it tells you like what all the good things that beets are good for, and cabbage. And so I mean, I've done a variety of juicing things. I mean, as a cancer survivor, I wanted to maintain my health, and so I tend to do juicing fasts, and I incorporate weeds from my yard in my food, and because they just have such great vibrancy. And so I've worked with food on a lot of different levels because I like to explore.
Okay, well, let me ask you, Laurel, for those of us who are completely disconnected from the world, what is a juicing fast? You say a juicing fast, like I should know what that is.
Oh, sure, sure. Okay, well, a juicing fast is basically you're making fresh juices from fruits and vegetables, and you are drinking them, and that is basically your diet for 1 to 2 weeks, depending on what you're planning on cleansing. And you can also different juices are good for different parts of your body. Like the beets are really great for your liver, and so that's what I would do. I would do depending on what kind of fast I was doing. Like there's intestinal fast, there's like liver fast, um, these various cleanses. And so I would tailor the juicing I was doing in reference to those things. And also in these, like I love working this one book. It's called Healing with Juices. And it gives you protocols for doing these various fasts, and I've worked with that. And one of the things I like to do every spring is for at least a month I take dandelion root tincture, um, and it's well known as a liver tonic, and thus being that it supports your liver and running optimally. And your liver has over 500 functions, one of them being filtering 6 cups of blood a minute. Plus, also, dandelion root tincture ups my digestive juices, so I'm getting more nutrients out of my food. And so I consider it a longevity medicinal herb because it has these great qualities. So that I do that every spring as part of my anti-cancer routine.
I remember one time I heard you say in a talk that in the fall or in the summer, you should mark your hardiest, biggest, most robust dandelions so you could dig up the root.
Yeah, my
And
grandmother's.
yes, that's right. So what would you be exposed to or feel that would prompt you to think that you needed to have a week-long juice fast?
Well, unfortunately, just breathing the air, there's toxins in the air. I mean, burning coal puts mercury in the air. And so even if you're just breathing the air, even if you're living a very healthy life by drinking filtered water and eating organic food, it is good to cleanse your system. And a lot of people, I mean, like here in the USA, we have a very refined diet generally, and that stuff can build up on the walls of your intestines, and so it makes it so you're not absorbing your nutrients as well as you could, and plus there could be some putrefaction. So it's good to kind of like move that stuff through, and the more fiber and stuff you're eating, the more you're kind of like roto-rootering your
Yeah.
intestines, so you don't get a buildup, and also you're not like absorbing food. I mean, people can have like a very thick coating on their intestinal walls that blocks their absorption, and also some of their absorption, and also you know it's going bad in there. So it's good not to be exposed to that or minimize that.
I know one time I went to see this guy, I was, like, so sick and I just could hardly go, and it wasn't the flu, it was my body being in toxic overload, and he showed me all the chemicals that were in my bowel, and I was thinking back when I was in high school working making copies, so I had a lot of toner, copy toner in my bowel. I was like, "Oh my god." Um, anyway, he helped me a lot, but it wasn't from roto-rootering, I don't think.
Kept telling you don't eat the toner.
Well,
Yeah,
well, the
Jay
thing
said
is,
don't eat the
the thing
toner.
is there's chemicals in a lot of things. We are exposed to a lot more chemicals than our forefathers were. I mean, how many people know that there is fire retardant in breast milk because it's you absorb things from your clothes.
Yeah.
Well,
So
I heard there
Plastic threads, plastic threads
microplastics.
everywhere.
Well, getting off of bowels here for a second.
Well, wait, before we do that, I just want to explain the word refined, because it's not refine, it's refined. And you're by that, I think you mean like things like white sugar, white flour, that type of foods. These are the base of our diet in this culture, right?
that's right. Yes, yes. The thing is when you have refined foods, a lot of the nutrients are stripped away. I mean, they do enrich flour, but it's not like eating whole wheat flour or something like that, which hasn't had its nutrients taken away. And also the fiber, it also supports health in your system too.
Okay. Well, I was going to get you off onto the foraging part because I kind of introduced that. So when you're talking, you've already mentioned about dandelions. What other things that commonly people might run across, maybe not even realizing that they're edible, and not only edible but good for you?
Well,
Well,
maybe we should
violets.
talk about what foraging is first.
Yeah. Okay. Wander around.
No,
Go
not
for it. Go
exactly.
for it. Yeah. Wander around,
Um,
chewing on things, park
Yeah.
benches,
See
things like
somebody's
that.
yard and you go, man, you have the best weeds, and just start picking them. You're going to get shot.
Yeah, and just be careful when you go to your neighbors. Don't say, "Hey, you got any weed?" So that could get you into a whole different world of foraging.
What kind of
So,
weeds do you have?
all right, go for it.
yeah, well, there are lots of things that I like to forage in my yard. I'm super excited. My red bud is about ready to bloom, and I will be eating I'll be eating the flowers off my red bud. And so one thing that I think is great to get into your diet are violet leaves. And I have this book that I absolutely love by Susan Weed. It's called Healing Wise, and it has 7 chapters. Each chapter is devoted to a quote unquote weed, and it tells like its nutrient qualities, its medicinal qualities, and gives you recipes. And one of the plants that she discusses in this book are violets. Well, violets in the past have been used for breast cancer as a specific. And so one of the things I like to do in the summertime is peruse my yard and see what's growing that is edible, and gather those and make myself a drink. So I might be gathering purslane, violet, wood sorrel, violet leaves. Let's see, lamb's quarters, wild grape leaves. So I just get a handful of those things. I put them in my blender with some fruit, some water, maybe some bee pollen. Start off minimally at first, and I blend that all together with some sunflower or pumpkin seeds, and that's a green smoothie. And I'm getting lots and lots of chlorophyll. And by incorporating these fresh green plants into my body, Paul Pitchford, who wrote Healing with Whole Foods, which is like a 700-page plus tome of awareness about food, you're getting this chlorophyll, and chlorophyll it's detoxing, it's anti-inflammatory, and it renews and builds your blood. And one thing that many people probably don't know about chlorophyll is that it almost is molecularly similar. It is molecularly similar to blood. The only difference is that the central molecule in chlorophyll is magnesium, and the central molecule in blood is iron. So that's the only differential. So the thing is if you're eating your chlorophyll, it makes sense that it would be renewing your blood. And so the things I say is eat your weeds and chocolate, because chocolate has your iron, and then if you're getting your chlorophyll, then you are rebuilding your body, and your blood is what feeds your body. I mean, good circulation, and you want to have nutrients in your blood to feed your body. I mean, that's why being sedentary is so bad for your body, because you're not getting that blood deep into your tissues through movement, and you certainly want to feed your body. I mean, that's really critical for health, is eating health, eating
Oh,
healthy.
okay, well, Laura, let me interrupt you here for just a second to let people know that you are listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke, reminding you it is indeed the end of the world as we know it.
And thank God.
Thank God. So we're joined today by Laurel Hobden, all around good guy and feeder
You're
of
the guy.
blood, feeder of blood.
She got your attention when she said eat chocolate.
Yeah, eat chocolate. It was reminding. Okay, well, I'm good about one out of those two things. So
One out of yeah, one.
one
Well,
out
let
of two.
me just say that it's really early spring right now, so there's a lot of food, and in fact, violets are starting to bloom, which is unbelievable. But there's a lot of wild lettuce and even lemon balm, which makes lovely tea. There are a lot of really great plants out there, and I thought it would be fun if we talked about what are some ways that you might make salad. Like somebody may think, well, the green smoothie doesn't sound so great, but I know this weekend we picked a lot of greens out of the high tunnel, but then we went around and gathered up dead nettle, purple dead nettle, and some wild lettuce and lots of wild garlic and chives to add to our salad mix. So I was thinking it might be good if we talked a little bit about, what you think would make a good salad in the summertime or now.
Sure, sure. Well, well, right now, something that is about ready to bloom in the Midwest is the red bud. And these flowers, you can just taste the high vitamin C of them, and they're nice sprinkled over the top as kind of like a crouton, like a crouton or something like that at the top. Not that they're crunchy, but they are very flavorful. But there's lots of things you can gather in your yard. I mean, dandelion leaves and the cleavers and purslane. I mean, purslane apparently is very high in the omega-3s. So certainly a good thing to get into your diet. And I like to use the wild grape leaves and chickweed. Chickweed is wonderful. I mean, it just has this light salty taste, and it has lots of benefits for your body. I mean, certainly check out Susan Weed's book, Healing Wise. And let's
Well, a
see
lot of
what else.
leaves
Oh,
don't taste great after they get to be a certain size. So
right.
sometimes
They
it's
are better in
best
the
to pick
spring.
when they're young. The other thing I'll say about red bud is that you'd want to be really careful right now with red bud, not to pick too many of the blooms. They do set seed pods like pea pods that people buy to saute, and you can use them the same way in stir fry. But they're being really bombarded by climate change, and they're not producing as
Oh,
many buds. And actually, there's a study that's gathered a lot of us in and asked us to do some measuring and observation on the red buds that we have. And we do have quite a few here at Blue Rock Station. But they are delicious. Just keep in mind you should leave some buds, maybe
oh
for
yes.
the
Well,
pods to eat, but also just because you want to have some seed, we may need it.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, whenever foraging, you shouldn't take more than 10% of what is available, just to assure that there will continue to be availability, that it still be growing and be healthful.
Uh-huh. Are there other rules around foraging?
Well, certainly, you want to have 100% identification. You certainly want to know exactly what you're eating, because there are some poisonous lookalikes. So, many foraging books, they tell you exactly how to identify to make sure that the plant is what you are looking for. And you certainly want to be solid about that. You don't want to eat like Queen Anne's lace looks very similar to water hemlock, which is poisonous. So you certainly want to make sure you're not getting water hemlock when you are looking for Queen Anne's lace, which is sometimes referred to as a wild carrot.
One time, long time ago, we one of our interns wanted to make stinging nettle soup because he was going back to work in a restaurant and they were going to have that as a recipe. And so we went out and gathered what we thought was the stinging nettle, and we made some soup, and he took a big spoonful of it and he turned green, I swear, and he goes, "Here, try it." And I said, "Well, listen, first of all, when you try something, you don't take a big bite, you take a little bite." And it turned out it was motherwort, and boy, did it
Oh my
taste bad.
gosh. Oh yeah,
It really
motherwort is
tasted
really
bad.
bitter. Yeah.
Uh-huh. It would, if you weren't sick and you needed to be or you wanted to be sick, it would it'd be the cure.
Well, Laurel, before we run out of time, I wanted to touch on some of the medicinal aspects, but I also wanted to touch because we'd had some conversations before how the medical model establishment can sort of be pretty harsh on folks who claim that plants have actual medicinal values. It's strange where we hear these things like thinking of taking a walk, ask your doctor. Well, it's like thinking of eating something, you
Don't
bet.
ask your
Yeah,
doctor.
don't ask your doctor. They know nothing about this
No,
stuff.
they get like on average
But
one semester, one class, one semester on
right. But
nutrition.
I know you've got to, when you're talking about these things are good for you, they're healthy and all that, you got to kind of tiptoe around the whole
The
the
word
whole
medicinal.
legal disclaimer. So how what's your reaction to that? Or are you going to just remain silent so you don't hear from the lawyers?
No, I think it's good to speak from personal experience and also cite other like authors of books and the research that's out there presently, and take it from that level. Yeah, because unfortunately, people who are working with medicinal herbs are having to put up with the pressure of the government in not um, being talking about the medicinal qualities of plants. Like one of our recent local herbalists is no longer publishing articles because she got a letter from the FDA in reference to her sharing some information about dealing with the pandemic, which is unfortunate because that is shutting down a good resource that could be helpful to many.
Well, one of the challenges too is that first of all, they're hypocrites in that, well, many ways probably, but there are many major medications that people use that have these long names, but within them are medicinal plants.
Like aspirin, you know.
Yeah, well, they've added stuff to it, but it's nothing more than
Uh,
willow bark juice that's been
Well,
dried.
unfortunately, what they do is they find what they consider the active ingredient, and then they concentrate it, or they might create it chemically, as
Mhm.
opposed to getting it from the source. And generally, when you use a plant in its full, um, it's the whole part of the plant, then it buffers those kind of things, and that kind of thing is not generally not taken into consideration, in the Western medical
Right.
approach.
Right. Well, so in terms of medicinals, one of the things that I have thought for many years is funny is, eucalyptus is a very powerful, important plant. And so I think at our house we've come full circle because we were kids and we were totally icked out by Vicks Vapor Rub, which is petroleum jelly, which probably is not a great thing, but with eucalyptus in it. And we used to have to wear that when we got sick and have it rubbed on our chests and stuff. And
Or on the vaporizer.
yeah, and really that was, our moms didn't know why that worked, but today we know, eucalyptus is just a really powerful plant for helping with congestion and, all the things that go along with being really sick. So I thought maybe we could talk about some plants that you like in particular, or if you want to mention something, and I don't have any problem talking about it either, since I'm not in business of of blending herbs, but I do spend a lot of time with people, especially with our interns when they first come. They're almost always sick, particularly with like acne, And so we start out with a really high dose of acidophilus, which you can get acidophilus by eating plain yogurt, but it's not powerful enough. And within a week, they're in shock at how much better their skin is, and actually how much better they feel. So things like
That's
that,
wonderful.
acidophilus is a
Right.
bacteria. It's not a plant, but still, it's an example of how you correct one little thing instead of pouring more drugs into it.
Right. Well, one thing in particular that I always have in my refrigerator is garlic infused organic olive oil. And I personally use that for earaches and toothaches. I was chasing my son around the house. He loved it. He was little. And I could feel my heartbeat in my tooth. My toothache was so bad. And so that night before I went to bed, I took a cotton ball and I put some of my garlic oil on that, and I put it between my molars in the back where that was going on. And the next day I could take those molars and I can grind them, and there was no pain whatsoever. And when I saw the dentist later that day, she said, well, if that happens again, we're talking root canal. And I wish I had kept up with the garlic oil, because about 3 years later, I did end up having a root canal with that tooth. And so I always have garlic oil, in my refrigerator to help me out with that kind of thing. Yeah. And one thing I found helpful for me was when I had the flu, when you had the aches and pains of flu, just one drop of peppermint essential oil under the tongue, and you might want to have somebody to chase it because it's very strong, but that takes away the aches and pains of the flu. And when I had the flu several years back, I would take a drop as soon as the aches and pains returned. And after doing that for 48 hours, the flu was all gone. And my partner of the time had that flu for a week, where I was over it in 48 hours. And I think that peppermint helped out there.
Yeah.
Also,
well,
I do
peppermint's
grow.
great.
Yeah,
we
I
use
also
it with
do.
goats too. This isn't just humans. We use peppermint with goats. The garlic oil we keep in the milk room, so when we need it for any number of things with goats. And it's always great because it's something you could take for yourself, so you're not pushing anything onto them that's not natural.
Okay, well, Laurel, I'm going to have to draw this conversation to a close. So you've been listening to When the Biomass Hits the Wind Turbine with Jay and Annie Warmke. We want to thank our guest, Laurel Hobden. Well, thank you, Laurel. And we want to thank
you.
Our Emmy award-winning, always eating and foraging Adam Rich, our producer. And we want to thank you for spending just a little bit of time with us. And as your grandmother hopefully told you, the secret to a happy and sustainable life is?
You should go to Laurel's workshop. She's having one in May.
Is that all she said?
That's what she said.
All right. Okay, till next time. Bye-bye.
Blossom in the night, the stars dancing in the twilight. Soon we'll be together, all will be revealed. Mother will sing and the children will be. You can find more information on living sustainably in our unsustainable world at bluerockstation.com.